This is four-wheel drive Super Duty F350. It's a 2003 model, and I've got a leaking axle seal. You see it's kind of wet down in here, and it's not this seal here. That's just a dust seal. That's just a dust seal. The seal that's holding the oil back is inside the differential over there, and in order to get to that, I got to get this hub and axle off, and then I got to take the pan off the differential and let the oil out of it, and I won't be able to get to the seal until I get the axle out. So you take your tire off, and then what size is this? 21 millimeter. All of these nuts all the way around, you got a hole out here corresponding with each nut. You got to take all of those off. I forgot to mention, the reason it's got this hub extension here, or whatever that thing is called, I don't know what it's supposed to be called, is because this is a dually truck. See, it's got dualies in the back. The 350s are going to have that. There might be a 350 with singles, but most of your 350s are going to be dualies. And not just Ford, but GM's, Dodge, they all are going to have this extension for that bowl-shaped wheel that goes on there. And that two-wheel dolly is real handy for lifting your wheel on and off of there. Got those nuts off. Just give this thing a whack right about there. Both sides. This one's coming off pretty easy because just a few months ago I did a brake job on it. So gives me a little bit more room to get in here and get this retaining ring out that holds that lock-in on. Now you take your snap-on needle nose and squeeze the retaining ring there. Get that off of there. And this will just come out. Now, there's another snap ring in there. You'll need snap ring pliers to reach in there and get that. I had to grab another snap ring pliers. The points on the first one were too big. There's supposed to be another washer in here, but I couldn't put it in when I put these brakes on because these aftermarket brakes, I guess it just wasn't machined down tight enough or small enough where that other plastic washer would go in there, so I had to go without it. But I gotta take this brake caliper off too. There's nothing to that. Just take these two big bolts off, top one, bottom one, and then pull this thing over and hang it by something. Hang a bungee strap or something up there to hang it on. Got that caliper off. That's a 21 millimeter also. You can use that 21 millimeter on everything. Your lug nuts, your spacer, all this stuff. The big bolts on the caliper. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull this off of here, but I had to turn the wheels to the right so that I could get a straight shot on these bolts. If you use an extension or a swivel, you lose too much power that way and it sits there and rattles and it doesn't come off. But you get a straight shot on it as much as you can, and saves you from having to break them loose by hand with a breaker bar. While I have this turned to the right, I'm going to go ahead and get these four studs, or these nuts, off. They're in here. Two on this side, two on the other side. But while it's turned to the right, we'll get these ones on the back side of it out. And then we'll turn it to the left and get the ones out on the front side of it. I couldn't get a black impact socket on these. There just wasn't quite enough room to squeeze it in there. There might have been if I turned this U-joint around enough, but I didn't. I just stuck a chrome socket in there and a breaker bar. I got those two out, but one of them, the stud came out. I'm ready now. Both the studs came out on the top and on the bottom. I just got the nuts off. The studs are still in there, so I don't know that that matters. I'm just going to straighten out this steering, and then tap this with a hammer. It should come off pretty easy because I had all this apart less than a year ago because I had bad bearings, had a ball joint issue, brakes, all kinds of stuff. Just fixed a bunch of stuff while I was in there, but I didn't do the seal. I didn't know the seal. The seal was showing some seepage, but it wasn't actually dripping at that point. It is now. I got this loose. There's an O-ring on here. It's right there. It kind of once you get that out, then it's pretty loose. Now I've got what looks like a 5-sided Allen key right here. This stuff must have came with a wrench for that. I do not remember. No, I'll tell you what, the wire came with it. It came with this hub, so I never took that off. I don't have a 5-sided Allen wrench that I know of. I can take it off here, and otherwise I just got to keep chasing back and undo the whole thing all the way back there. Well, maybe I don't have to. Maybe I can take it off here and just lay this hub up here someplace. I don't know. Where am I going with that zoom? Sorry about that. Yeah, I think I can just take it off here, this bolt right here, and then just lay this hub up here or tie it with something so it doesn't fall, because I don't want to break this sensor wire, and I don't want to take off any more than I absolutely have to, because that's more I got to put back on. Little 5/16 bolt right there for that one, for this sensor wire. Got all those bolts out, the two on top I screwed back in finger tight. That's all, just finger tight. I can loosen them up with my fingers. That's to control this pan when it comes loose, so that the oil don't all dump out all over me. It's probably going to get on me anyway, but I'm going to take this, to me it's a gasket scraper. That's my favorite gasket scraper, is these this one looks like an 1.25 inch. 1.25 to 1.5 inch. Thick bladed putty knives, and then I sharpen one side. I bevel one side down on the grinder, and then I continue to keep these things sharp on the side of the grinding wheel, and that is my favorite gasket scraper. But I am going to go ahead and set the camera down. I'm going to hammer this in there with a hammer and start wedging this pan off of there. And I'm going to have to do that because it's got silicone glue all the way around, a pretty tough silicone. It's a tough one, it's not the soft one. So I'm going to go on ahead and get that off of there. It's starting to come off. I'll tell you what's interesting, old as this truck is, how come this oil is transparent and yellow? I would think it would be pretty dirty, but it's not. Got the bulk of that oil out of the pan, in the oil pan, out of this differential. I got a screwdriver wedged in there to keep a space open, because the weight of it wants to just close the pan against the housing. I'm not working in a shop where time is a big thing. I'm just going to let this thing drip. It's going to drip for a day because that oil is really thick. But it's not cold out anymore. We're out of the winter. We're in May now. It's not hot, but it's nice weather, and I'll let this thing drip for a while, and I'll get busy doing something else and come back on this after a while. I cheated. I had to go on YouTube and find out the best way to get this axle out of there, and the best way that I saw was somebody that stuck a socket in there between this is that a knuckle, I guess you call that, and the U-joint. Anyway, I was turning the steering here by hand. I was able to turn it by hand, and I didn't put a socket there because I happened to have a bolt laying here. I took the bolt, that's the bolt from my brake caliper. I put that in there, and then I turned the steering back back this way to the left, and got the bolt wedged in there. And then I just started wrenching it with my arms, and I see the socket or the axle starting to come out. It was getting tight. I'm not a real big guy, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the steering wheel to the left and watch that axle pop out of there. Well, while I was turning the steering wheel, it got tight, and so I came out here to see what's binding up, and I see this is in here crooked, but if I turn it back, this might straighten out. If I can pull it with my hand, it might straighten out. But anyway, I believe this is a good way to do this, and I'm going to go ahead and just work it back and forth until it comes out of there. Okay, I just grabbed the end of the axle shaft and I just worked it to the right because it was in there crooked to the left. The only thing that's binding up, really, I should have sprayed the inside of this with some WD. I got a can right there, but I didn't know. This is my first time doing this. This is like a vacuum seal for the vacuum operated, and there's a vacuum port here for that, but I don't have the vacuum operated. Mine is direct. You just shift it with you shift it with a gear shifter to put it in four-wheel drive. And so that's what's binding up, is this big vacuum seal here that I don't really even have to have because mine doesn't have vacuum to engage the four-wheel drive. It was binding up again, but I got it straightened out with the bore. Got the axle parallel to the bore, and then I put that bolt back in there again, turned the steering by hand until the bolt was wedged, went and turned the steering wheel, and then it came out. One more situation here. I got to take this carrier out to get to that seal, and it's only bolted in with 4 bolts. One big cap here on this side, another one over there, and then you can pull that out. But I got to get this axle out too, so I got to take this side apart, jack this side up, and take this side apart, and then I got to knock this steering bar loose, this tie rod in, knock this thing out of there, and get this out of the way so that I got room to get that thing out of there. So I will not be doing any more recording until I am ready to start putting this back together, because ready to change the seals themselves. I got to get this carrier out first, so I got a lot of work to do to get to that point. I got this side apart, and a little trick some people don't know. I took the cotter pin out and the crown nut, and I smacked. Well, I sprayed a little WD up in there. Probably didn't have to, but I smacked this part right here, because since that's a cone shape going down in there, you smack it here, that drives the cone shape, the cone up. Smacked it with like 3 or 4 pound sledge right there. And I saw it go up, so see, it's loose. Because that's got to come out of the way so we can get that gear set, that carrier out of there, out of the differential. Getting this carrier out of there is a little bit tricky, but not really that bad. I got these caps off and I got them in order. I took pictures of them. There's very slight differences in the castings on them, so I took pictures of them before I took them off so I know how to put them back on. And then I take a pry bar over here on the the passenger side, and I'm just working behind one of these bolts and the frame here. I got the bent side of the pry bar there, the elbow side of it or whatever, and I went to just pushing it and popping it a few times, and then it started to come out. Now I can't do this on camera because I'm underneath the truck and I'm laying on a bumper jack because I don't have as much support as I should have. I'm not a bumper jack, but a floor jack. I only got one jack stand on the other side, so anyway, let me get this thing out of here, wrestle it down to the floor because it's going to be heavy. I just sharpened up 3 of these scrapers, and I mean they're sharp. I'm touching them up on the side of this wheel. It's still spinning like that, and then touch the back side flat. It puts a nice sharp edge on there. Now I'm going to clean this pan, the surface on this. It didn't have a gasket, it just had this real tough silicone. Not the regular kind you normally see, but this is a lot tougher. I don't know if I can find the same kind, but I got some that I'll use. This Silicone Ultra should be good enough. I'm back on this a few days later. Took me a while to get the seals. Also, I bought a kit of like bearing or seal installation discs, so that I can tap, because these have to be put in below the surface. I can't just put them in flush. I got to go below the surface, so they got to be in there a little ways, and I can't do that with the way I usually do it. Most seals go on flush, and I just take a block of wood or something and put over the top of it and tap it in with a hammer. But these have to go in farther than that, so I'm going to get started on cleaning these up. Looks like I scratched the bore in here just a little bit when I took it out, the seal out. So I'm going to polish that down just a little bit first. I'm just taking a little piece of 400 and smoothing that down a little bit where that little scratch was. Got my pan of oil here from the differential. I'm going to take a little drop of that and wipe it around the inside of this bore to help, sorry about the camera, to help that seal go in there. And I could wipe a little bit around the seal, probably don't need to though. Alright, I kind of pushed it into place with my fingers and it went. So now I'm going to take one of these seal installer discs that's the right size. It's the same as the OD of the seal, or slightly smaller, and I'm going to use that and a hammer and start tapping that in there. I can't do it on camera. I don't have anything to mount the camera on over here. I'm still working my way in there with it. It takes a while to get it started because the seal never wants to go in straight. One side wants to go in farther than the other, and you got to keep checking and seeing if one side's too high, and then you got to start tapping on that side. Not this, but on the disc. Hold the disc in there out of the way. Unfortunately, there's no room to put the drive shaft that goes on the disc. You can't, if you put that on there, the end of it's going to be inside the housing or the tube on this side. It won't so you have to do it this way, or get a real long drive shaft, and I don't have one like that. And you have to have this, but I guess that's better than it falling on the concrete, scratching it up. I got the first one most of the way in there. I'd like to go in a little bit more, but I'm really having trouble holding the thing while I'm trying to put it in there, so without hitting my fingers. And another thing, be very careful not to hit this place here because that's where your bearing goes for the gear housing, or the gear carrier. I just cleaned out this. There was a ring of rust on the inside of this bore that was going to stop this new seal from going in all the way, and I didn't want to fight with that, so I just reached in there with a piece of 180 that I had handy, and worked around that outer edge. This is not a seating surface that a lip seal would spin on, so it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth, but it needs to be smooth. And so the 180 cleaned the biggest part of that rust off. And then I took a little piece of 400 and went around it some more to smooth it down a little more. I already have my pan clean. I got to pick up pieces of cotton. The cottonwood trees are throwing cotton now. Now I got to clean the surface on the housing there, and then I'll be ready to wipe the junk out of it, the cotton that's sticking to everything, and then start putting that gear carrier back in there. I got the carrier back in, and I got these caps just barely started. I'm going to snug them down with a 3/8 drive impact, carefully, a little at a time on each bolt, and then I'm going to torque them to 85 foot-pounds. And I just had a lot of trouble with cottonwood flying around, and so I'm spending a lot of time picking in here, trying to get as much of that cotton out as possible. So I've got this thing going back together here. I got as much cotton out of there as I can. I got this thing torched down to 85 foot-pounds, these two caps here, and I'm going to take a little bit of brake cleaner on a rag and wipe this gasket surface. I'm not putting the gasket on, I'm putting silicone on, and then I'll be ready to and I'll put silicone on the pan too, or the cover, whatever you want to call it. And you got to remember, this one bolt that goes here, there's not room with this casting right here. There's not room for a regular bolt there, so you got to put that one with the Allen head on it. Got the silicone on there. Where did I do with that tube? I was going to show it to you. This one is gray, ultra gray gasket maker 82-194 Permatex. Put that on there a little bit thick on this side, about 1/16 of an inch thick, give or take, and then on the pan just a real thin wipe all the way around, and then they're just going to kind of surface dry just a few minutes, 10 minutes maybe, and then I'll put that pan on there and put those bolts in, snug them down just slightly more than hand tight all the way around, let it sit for a little while, then we'll torque them down to 35. Now before I put these shafts in here, there's a little spot right here, and there might be some more around there. I've got a little piece of, I can't tell if it's 1500 or 1200, but it's in my body shop supplies in my other garage. But I'm going to try to polish some of this up a little bit, because this is the seal that actually, this is the surface that rides on the seal, and this will eat up the seal if it's not smooth and clean. Got that pretty well cleaned up. I went on back into where it was rusty and got that with the piece of 400, and then I went back over it with that little round piece of I think it was 1200, and polished it down a little bit more. I'm going to put some oil on this and then go ahead and slide this in place.